Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for this webinar about the new Open Space Conservation Grant Program. We're really excited to have released the grant and to be here to talk with you about it some more. We're going to go over, next slide, please. We're going to go over a number of things during the webinar, but there's three main components. We're going to talk about the funding amounts and the eligibility requirements, project types, and then we'll talk about questions. As Emma mentioned, we would want you to put questions in the chat, and we'll have two sessions, one after several of us have spoken, and then another one towards the end, in which we will look at questions in the chat and provide answers. There may be some questions we may not be able to provide answers for right now, but these answers and questions will appear in questions and answers document that will be posted on the SFS site. More about that later. I also wanted to just also introduce the other speakers or other panelists for this webinar. One is Dylan Walrath. He's from the Division of Direction, or he's from Division Direction in the Division of Lands and Forests. Rob Morrell and Shane May, who are also in the Division of Lands and Forests in the Bureau of Real Property, and Brian Ellis and myself, who are in the Bureau of Forest Preserve and Conservation. And in addition, we're fortunate to have Brad McMillian from ITS Grants Management, which is in the Office of Information Technology Services. All of these folks are going to be speaking with you about various parts of this grant opportunity. Next slide. I would also mention I would really encourage you to stay on for Dylan and Brad. Dylan will be speaking about the financial worksheet and then also interim payments, and Brad will be talking about the SFS program, being running through his own presentation for that. Really encourage you to stay on for that. The majority of issues arise from either budgeting or SFS use. So really encourage you to stay on for that. Moving on, the bidding period, as we know, already started. We will be accepting questions until February 16th at 3 p.m. And as I mentioned, our question and answers document will continue to be updated on a regular basis, and it will be posted in SFS. The application deadline is Wednesday, February 18th at 3 p.m. And that's a hard deadline. I think, as most of you might know, applications can't be accepted after that time. We expect or anticipate that awards would be announced in the spring of 26, and that the current contract start dates would be in the summer. Again, that's anticipated. Go to the next slide, please. So as already mentioned by Emma, all questions right now can go here into the chat, but any questions, in the future need to be sent to dlfgrants@dec.newyork.gov. And please put Open Space Conservation Grant Program in the subject line as part of your subject line. It helps us understand which grant it is that you're asking the question for. Also, if you have technical issues or questions about the grants management, the SFS, you can email the help desk, or there's also the phone numbers here that you can see. And I also just included this. This is the URL for the RFA itself. This you can find also on the website. As most of you probably already know, we do have a website, specific website for this that's within the DEC's larger website. We can go on to the next. So I just wanted to talk just really quickly about language. Sometimes you may hear bid, you may hear bidder, you may hear grantee, and I just want to make it clear that bid is basically the same thing as application. Bidder is basically the same thing as applicant in general. It depends on the project. And grantee is essentially the same thing as awardee. And we may use some of those terms not interchangeably, but the equivalents will be used interchangeably. You can go on to the next slide, please. All right, so just a little bit about where this grant funding comes from. It's coming from the Bond Act that was passed in 2022. It was $4.2 billion, as most of us are probably aware of, and $100 million from the 2022 Bond Act was put aside for open space conservation grant program, and $25 million is being made available for round one. You can go to the next slide, please. So just quickly, just talking about the visioning and goals, you really want this grant program to make an impact in a number of ways, including increasing climate resilience and adaptation, community health, access is a significant part of this, and preserve and improve terrestrial and aquatic habitats. Again, I want to make it very clear that this is for fee simple acquisition, so conservation easements are not eligible for this round. Also, wanted to mention that some of the eligibility requirements, they're connected with the open space plan, project and priorities, and then 30 by 30 strategies. And then also it must result in the acquisition of at least one of the 7 resources noted in the Bond Act, and that's in the definition section. And you can see them listed here. Go on to the next slide, please. So the grant release has had an arc here, and there was a scoping document that was put out, and there were comments received, and also related to what the eligible entities would be. And then eventually, I was hired in September. So tomorrow is my 3rd month anniversary. And public comment themes, as you can see, were across an array of topics. And we can move to the next one. So I just wanted to focus in a little bit just on the request for application itself, the RFA. So this is your encyclopedia to this grant. Answers to many questions are actually in the RFA. And as I said before, the questions and answers document will be periodically updated. And I'm sorry, I wrote the DEC's website. What I meant is the SFS site. And we encourage everybody to review that document periodically, and any clarifications about the RFA's content, will also appear there. We can go to the next slide. So just quickly, some quick information. The time frame of this is a 3-year contract period. That's what we're anticipating as the contract period for this. The minimum is 50,000. The maximum is 3.5 million, and we have allocated 2 million of the 25 million towards small projects, and those are $250,000 or less. The projects must be located within New York State. There is no minimum acreage, and there's no land cover quality requirement for this grant. We can move on to the next one. So I just want to make sure that there's 2 applications per bidder, but it can be more than that when there's a different landowner that's identified in the bid or application, and it's called a post-acquisition landowner, and that's in the RFA. A big part of this, and there's some things that we were able to make different about this DEC grant than is typical. This is a performance-based instead of reimbursement, which means that estimates will be provided, and funding will precede the deliverables. And there was some modeling done on the Farmland Protection Implementation Grants Program, or FPIG. And another big part of this is that there's no match required, which is also a significant difference. And we can go to the next slide. So again, I just want to point out conservation easements are not eligible. This is for purchase of land. And another important thing is that the project must include public access. And there is a caveat to that, and you can see that here. And I would ask you to refer to the RFA for additional information. Just to point out some ineligible types of projects, properties that already have conservation easements on them, and lands that are already owned by the bidder, and lands that are under municipal ownership are subject to park alienation. And for more information on park alienation, I think we would ask you to Google that, and you'll find some good information on what that means. We can go to the next slide. And the eligible bidders are municipalities, Indian nations or tribes that are recognized in New York or in the United States that are within New York State, and then not-for-profit corporations. And there's more information in the RFA, about each one of these, and I would invite you to read that. We can move on to the next slide. So just a little quick bit about eligible expenses. Obviously the fee purchase price, so the purchase price that is supported by an appraisal is one of the eligible expenses, and then other costs that we would typically think that are associated with acquisition of fee properties. And I won't talk about each one of them here. The RFA again will provide some very good information for you on that. And then also there is also site preparation and cleanup funding that's available. And there are some eligible costs and there are some ineligible costs. And also these are costs that are less than $100,000 per project and can be completed in the contract period. We can move to the next one. So here's a list of examples of ineligible expenses. If you have done DEC grants before or state grants before, many of these things may not be eligible depending on the grant. But I would invite you again to really look at the RFA when it's talking about ineligible expenses here. And I would just point to the last bullet there where we're talking about site preparation and cleanup. Definitely pay attention to what can be included as an eligible expense for that part of the grant. And we can go on to the next. So some other things that are associated with what an eligible project would be. Again, fee simple is required. Another is that, we have where it talks about here must be governed, the fifth bullet, acquisition must be governed by one sales contract with a single owner entity. And what we're essentially mean by that is that, if there are multiple parcels owned by multiple landowners, it's going to require a bid for each landowner. If there are multiple parcels owned by a single landowner, that's a different situation. But when there's multiple parcels owned by multiple landowners separately, different landowners, they cannot be in the same application. As I mentioned before, public access is required except as noted. And the bidder must give full details about that. And another important part of this, and there'll be more talked about later about this, is that clean title is extremely important here. And another thing is that projects that do have some pre-existing improvements are eligible, but it could affect scoring potentially. And we can move on to the next slide. So this is the list of the required uploads for bid submission. And there'll be a little bit talked more about some of these later, but I just wanted to make sure that we got these in front of you. And it's an Appendix B in the RFA, has a quick checklist there that is very useful, but always be sure to refer to the meat of the RFA as well, not just the appendix. And we can go on to the next. And so there's a lot of words here. I just wanted to make sure I provided it as it was shown in the RFA, but again, please refer to the RFA here. But suffice it to say, it's going to be really important if you're not registered to get registered. And then if pre-qualification is required, start the pre-qualification as soon as possible. Do not delay on that. That could cause a delay in being able to submit a grant and perhaps pass the deadline. So please do not delay, especially in that pre-qualification process. And we can go on to the next. So this is just a visual representation of the performance-based payments. We thought this might be helpful just to see this briefly. Dylan will talk a little bit more about this later, but as you can see, we've cut these interim payments that are based on estimates, and you can see how they're cut up and what the anticipated timelines for those are, ultimately ending in about a 3-year period, or a 3-year contract. And this, I just want to say, it starts, this time starts when the master contract is executed. And we can go to the next slide. And again, this is just there's a final payment at the end, and that would end the project essentially. I want to point out too that the payment for site preparation and cleanup is that comes after closing. Let me go to the next slide. Something I didn't mention to those that are speaking today or our panelists, please feel free to chime in if I misspeak or forget something significant. That would definitely be appreciated, so don't be shy. Scoring criteria. So this is the pass-fail categories. In total, there are 16. There's 2 slides here. This is the first slide. These are very important. You need to get past all of these. If you fail in any one of these, that would make the grant application essentially ineligible, and it would be disqualified. So please make sure you pay very close attention to these pass-fails and make sure that they're all answered positively. And we get what we need, what's asked for in the RFA. You can go to the next. And then these are the last 3 of those. And again, please be sure to pay close attention to these, to pay close attention to all the scoring, but pass-fail in particular will stop your application. You can go to the next slide. And so again, a lot of words here. I put them here because I didn't want to misrepresent anything. Editing this language would sometimes changes the meaning. So I apologize for the amount of words here, but this is really just to draw your attention to the graded categories that equals 100 points. These are very important. There's varying amounts of points that will be given for certain levels of information that's been asked for each of these categories. And it's important to really focus in on making sure that you demonstrate or show what has been asked for, and that is just critical. And you have to remember that we don't know these properties, and we don't know necessarily how your organization operates or how your partners or the landowners. We don't know any of that, so it can be helpful to address these fully. There can be some limitations on character numbers, but I believe that there's a way to extend the character number, and I think Brad will talk more about that later. We can go on to the next. And again, these are other graded categories. These are all currently graded categories are very important, and you want to address them fully and provide the information that we're asking for. And then the third, this is just a breakdown of that last one, which was reasonableness, and it's broken into 2 pieces. One is reasonableness of cost for land, and the other is the non-land. Land is obviously the cost of the land itself, and then the non-land are all those other costs that we associate with acquiring land, and it's all listed in the RFA. I would just point also that the DEC reserves the right to limit non-land costs to 25% of the land's cost, unless there's sufficient justification provided. Again, refer to the RFA for additional information. And remember, eligibility of costs is also a score, and does the budget contain eligible costs, and to what extent are ineligible costs added to the budget. You can go to the next slide. So this is provided just as a little bit of a help, maybe, or a little bit of a get the wheels turning. Many of you already probably have projects in mind anyways, but wanted to just show that this program can cover a broad array of project types. And the first one is a larger parcel with something that we might associate as more typical with land protection, especially natural resource related protection. The second one is a community garden, a very small piece. And you can see I've described, the relationship there, and there's partners and things like that, and the kinds of things that might be part of that kind of project. The third is like a small, maybe it's a small pocket park. And that 4 acres might be huge, depending on the municipality. So, small might not even be the right word there. And it certainly doesn't make the projects any less challenging either, and complicated. And then the last one is a project that an Indian nation or tribe may want to pursue or think about pursuing. So I just wanted to illustrate that this has a broad array of potential projects. And again, there isn't a minimum acreage. And I wanted to say again, there's no match required. We can move to the next one. So, after you receive a award, you'll be notified by email and in an official letter that you've been selected to receive an award. And then SFS will also provide you with an award status. So I just wanted to mention that. We can go to the next slide. And just a nod here to reporting. Just wanted to alert you, and it's in the RFA, but just alert you that quarterly narrative progress reports are required, and an interim performance-based budget payment. Yeah, it's sorry. Yes, yeah, this can be included with quarterly narrative progress reports. It can be. And then there will be a final progress report that's required as well. We can go to the next slide. All right, so just a little bit here about post-award requirements. So there was what was required for the actual bid submission of the application, and then once award happens and a contract is done, then it kicks in these other pieces of documents and actions that will be required. And you can see we have sort of an expected timeline from the contract start date for each of these bullets. More will be talked about this a little bit later, but suffice it to say, you can go on to the next slide. There's these various pieces that are described very well in the RFA, and you can review more of it there. You can move to the next slide. So I just wanted to talk a little bit more, and again, there's a lot of words here, but I wanted to make sure I didn't change the meaning that's expressed in the RFA. But site preparation and cleanup, that is done post-closing. Again, there's a $100,000 limit, per project, and there's a number of different types of eligible costs. And also there's a requirement for a Bond Act signage, which can also be included in the cost. And just remember that there are certain costs that are not eligible, and you can see them listed here. And trail building is probably one that might be of particular interest to some folks as a non-eligible cost. So we can go to the next. So I'm going to be handing off to Rob Morell from our real property office, and he's going to walk us through some of the real property related aspects of this, the nuts and bolts of the acquisition process.
Thank you, David. So we have 3 slides to cover appraisal requirements and survey requirements. I won't hit every bullet, but I'll hit the highlights. If you are awarded a grant, DEC will be sending out an award notification package. And that package will outline the roles of the grantee, the appraisers, the appraisal reviewer, and the DEC in the appraisal process. So that will really highlight our expectations regarding the appraisal process. It's important to note that some of the requirements, the appraisal requirements, have been updated from previous DEC grant programs in lands and forests. So for those of you who are really, used to the other grant programs, or familiar with those, you want to pay attention. There's some pretty significant revisions to the appraisal process in this grant program. Appraisers hired by the grantees must provide all appraisal standards prior to the accepting the appraisal assignment. So we just really want to encourage, if you are an awardee, we want you to make sure to get the appendixes to the appraisers before they accept the assignment, so they understand, the goals and expectations of their report. This is a change the following from other grant programs. When the property values are estimated to be over $500,000, the grantee has to hire 2 appraisals. Grantees will be required to hire an additional appraiser reviewer to perform a technical review of all the reports. And this is outlined in the appraisal requirements link at the bottom of the next slide. So that's important. So that's a major difference. So you will be hiring an appraisal reviewer in addition to the appraiser. You can go to the next slide. The technical reviewer who reviews the 1 or 2 appraisers that you hire will recommend one report of the 2 or determine their own value. DEC will then perform a compliance review of all the reports, and all communications from DEC will be directed towards the appraisal reviewer that was hired by the grantee. And of course, the grantee will be included in those conversations, but DEC will be communicating directly with the appraisal reviewer. DEC will only advance the land payment that equals the value approved through the DEC appraisal process. So these are just a summary of the appraisal requirements. And we encourage you to read the full set of appraisal requirements provided in the links at the bottom of this slide and in the RFA appendixes. Go to the next slide. So a boundary survey is going to be required for every property. If there's an existing survey, you can approach that surveyor to have them update the survey to DEC standards, because the survey map will need to be certified to the DEC and to the insuring title company. DEC will review all the survey maps and approve them. And then once they are approved by DEC, all of the survey maps must be recorded in the county clerk's office prior to closing. And that's so the deeds into the grantee can reference the recorded survey map by instrument number. And again, I direct you to the RFA Appendix G, and ask that that appendix is provided to the surveyor when you are procuring their services, so they know what the DEC standards are, and then they can bid accordingly. And And that does it for appraisals and surveys.
Thank you, Rob. So now we're going to start a session for questions. Also, I would just point to you that if you have questions after the webinar, or you feel you didn't get an answer, or we're answering it later, feel free to send us questions to the DLF grants at dec.newyork.gov. And again, any SFS questions, please use the information that's listed there. Brian Ellis will now take over and sort of walk us through the question period.
Hey, everybody. We've had a lot of questions in the chat. So I'll start working through these. We've answered quite a few of them already. So we had a question from Mark concerning who can apply for grant from a big city like New York City. I believe we answered that one below. For New York City, not-for-profits or city departments can apply for up to 2 projects per location. The details can be found on our website and in our RFA. For everyone who asked if there will be a recording available and the slides, we will be posting them to our grant webpage. Both the recording of this and the grant slides, hopefully within this week. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Let's see. Warren Lucas asked, is there a benefit if the application is for multiple municipal jurisdictions, projects such as biotic corridors? We would probably need more information to answer this one. So if you could send that into our contact information, our DLF grants email, that would be helpful. But generally, there is no additional priority put on those. Let's see. There was a question regarding this is the first round. Will there be future rounds? As David put out in one of these, we have $100 million allocated to this via the Bond Act. So we anticipate future rounds in the coming years, but are not sure exactly what that looks like. Let's see. We had another question that said, would you say the order that those priorities are listed in is the order of what order all would value the most or the least? They are not, our orders of priorities for this grant are not in priority order. They're all weighed equally. Jamie asked, will updated 30 by 30 strategies be out soon so that applicants can use that information as guidance? And our response to that, which was in the chat, is that we advise that applicants use the draft strategies and methodology document until there are finals sent or updated. Let's see. We had a question. Is is there any weight for parcel size or connectivity potential? There is not any weight or priority put on the size of a parcel or the connectivity that it provides. Let's see, for municipalities, would a bidder be the municipality or the individual agency? Let's see, have we answered that one?
I can help, Brian. I think I did answer it.
Yeah, I think you did.
The municipality can be the bidder under their own steam, or they can be a fiscal sponsor for a non-for-profit or other organization.
Fantastic. Can grant funds be used to purchase a Superfund site? I'm not sure if any of our panelists have an answer to this.
I would say it's not specifically ineligible, but it would be not likely to score very well, provided what our criteria are.
Okay. If you have future additional questions, we'd be glad to look at it if you send us a more detailed question to our email. Let's see, the next question is, I assume doing a master park plan for a priority already city-owned would not be an eligible activity. That is true. This is a land acquisition grant primarily. So doing park plans for already owned parcels would not be an eligible grant. Natasha asked if this would be a reimbursement grant, and David went over the payment schedule and the milestones for that. This is not a reimbursement grant. All right, so let's see. The next question is, the Adirondack Land Trust has an easement on a section of the Hudson River on a parcel owned by the town. We are looking to develop in and around this easement location. Is this an eligible or not? Any of our panelists want to weigh in on this one?
This is David. The portion with a conservation easement on it would not be eligible. That's an ineligible property. You said in and around, we would need more, information. Invite you to send an email to DLF grants if you could.
Perfect. Thank you, David. Appreciate that. Yeah, there will be no easements for this round. This round is for fee acquisition only. There was a question regarding that. So there's another question about eligibility. If New York City Parks submits 2 applications, can New York City DEP also submit an application, or can New York City submit only 2 applications total?
What we've done in the past is suggest that they look up their supplier ID in SFS. And if you're having trouble finding it, you can email us and I can try and look it up for you. But if it's a different organization, you can put in an extra two bids. So I don't want to speak for whether the DEP is separate from parks or not in terms of SFS.
Can I
see if you've got a different number.
And I want to make sure we answered an earlier question appropriately too that I think we might have missed, which was that, is it the municipality itself or an agency within a municipality that is the applicant? And this may be related to that too. I'm not sure we can answer that, but unless you know, Michelle, off the top of your head, is it the actual town or city, or does a separate, if it's a larger municipality with separate agencies, who is the actual applicant? I think that's the question.
Well, it can be either, but if multi-agencies within one city want to apply, we can only take 2 bids from someone who has the same supplier ID in SFS.
Which would ultimately also be the name on the deed. So if the name on the deed would be the same for all the different agencies, I think then it would be one entity.
Right.
But do those agencies count as a municipal applicant, or are they, per our guidelines?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're not non-for-profits.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But we can look it up in SFS if you give us the exact information.
Also, to be a good place to note that there is the option to have the applicant apply and obtain the grant with the understanding that there's a landowner that will be taking on the ownership of the property, and that they need to be identified in your application, but that there is no limitation on the number of applications that can be submitted in that scenario.
All right, thanks, folks. I'll keep moving on. It looks like we got a lot of questions here. Are baseline documentation reports an eligible expense? That would depend. Typically, this grant again is for fee acquisition only. So if they are for conservation easements, they would not be. So I need more understanding of what your baseline documentation report is. Let's see, what was our next question? David asked, when is the eligible round? So we are currently in an open eligible round. This runs until February 18th. Let's see, the next question would be, if we recently acquired land, can that be eligible, or is it meant strictly to fund future acquisition of land? Can we apply for site prep of recently acquired land or land recently acquired that is being financed? I believe that this round is just for the acquisition of land and not for previously acquired land, and that would follow through to the site preparation. Funding of this would not be available if there is not a acquisition property attached to that application. Let's see. Is there a good resource to review what sort of specific site prep and cleanup activities constitute an eligible expense for this grant? I would point you towards the RFA, which has an explanation of this. So I would check out that section of our RFA.
Brian, can I just go back to the New York City question?
Sure.
That Dylan mentioned. I just wanted to let them know, if you go to the RFA page 9 and look at the multi-partner and intermunicipal projects, it talks about your post-acquisition landowner there, and that'll give you quite a bit of information.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Michelle.
Okay.
We're going to keep working through these until we run out of time. I would just advise everyone, if you've got additional questions that we can't get to please send in questions when you can to our email. Let's see.
We are
Is
nearly
there-
running out of time, about another 5 minutes.
So is there an ETA on an updated New York Space Open Space Plan or final 30 by 30 framework? There is no current date that those plans will be released, though our agency is working on trying to get those out as soon as we can. I advise looking at the draft 30 by 30 strategies and methodologies in the 2016 Open Space Plan until those are released. Let's see. Does clean title simply mean commercially insurable? Does one of our panelists want to take that?
I think I'd say yes. If there's nothing objectionable in the Schedule B, then we're clean.
Fantastic. Let's see. Another question regarding if this is a reimbursement grant. Again, this is a grant that does have a payment schedule and is not a reimbursement grant. If there are two parcels owned by the same landowner, but they are geographically dispersed, can we apply for two separate bids? It's a great question. Do any of our panelists want to jump in on that one?
I think I'm going to say I would differentiate if there's two parcels adjoining each other. That would probably be addressed in one closing, which would be one application in my mind. But if the two parcels were in like different counties and had different characteristics and would be rated differently, then it'd be two different applications. Just because they're the same owner doesn't mean they would be equal.
Rob, there's a middle ground there too. What if they're in the same county but not adjacent and they are under one closing?
It's a good question. I don't think our RFA
Okay.
addressed that. I'm not sure.
No, okay. We'll have to ponder that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would encourage anybody with that interest in that type of question to please email it to DLF Grants, and we can follow up, ensure that we follow up that way.
Absolutely. That's a great clarification, David. Let's see, the next question is, what is required for estimation of market value? Does it have to be a formal appraisal? It does not have to be a formal appraisal. There was some discussion about that within this and in the RFA. But if you have further questions, we definitely advise that you email our grant email. Let's see. I assume doing a master park plan for a property already city owned would not be an eligible activity. That is correct. Is the grant eligible for watershed property? The property is 60 acres. We are looking to purchase is landlocked by our municipal watershed property. The watershed property does not allow public access. So does that eliminate us from applying for this grant? It does not. There is a discussion in the RFA that regarding eligible projects and public access, and there are definitely reasons that public access would not be allowed on a property, and those will be considered in this. Let's see. Does acquisition have to apply to the entirety of a property or existing parcel? We have a landowner willing to sell a large portion of a parcel, but it would have to be subdivided off as part of this purchase. I believe that would be fine, Ian, as long as that subdivision is done prior to acquisition. Let's see. One of the earlier slides said that funding is meant to support purchase of land that is not meant to be conveyed to New York City after closing. Is that a permanent prohibition that has to be written into the deed? It does not have to be written into the deed, but it is the intent of the program. So it is not a permanent prohibition. Jamie asked, related to Tracy's question, the term real estate professional, is it defined in the RFP? Is that an appraiser, realtor, or someone else? Thanks. I don't know, Rob, do you want to expand on that question?
We deliberately did not. We're vague on that because you could get a reasonable estimate of value from multiple professions. So our point was it doesn't have to be an appraisal when you're estimating the value of with an application. So
Okay, thank you, Rob. Let's see, Scott asked, would Cornell Cooperative Extension be considered a public entity? I'm not positive on that. If you email us, we would be glad to look it up in SFS for you.
I think I answered it.
Oh, did you answer that one?
Yeah, they're
Okay.
definitely eligible for this grant.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, we better one last question, Brian, and we better move on.
Okay. Is a school district considered a public entity? And I
Yes.
believe they are.
See
Yes.
page 6 of the RFA.
Fantastic. All right. I think we're going to move on from now. Thank you all for your questions.
Okay, this is Dylan Walrath. I'll be presenting on the financial workbook and performance-based budget. So this is where you're going to provide all the information that we need to understand your expenses related to the project. And the RFA talks a lot about this performance-based budget and how it's going to work. Again, it's modeled similarly to for those of you who are familiar with the farmland protection implementation grants from Ag and Markets. This will look very familiar to you. If not, hopefully it will make sense, and we can help with any questions that you have. So basically, these, there were a lot of questions about, is this reimbursement? It's not a reimbursement budget, it's a performance-based budget. And the payment is based on successful performance of standardized steps in the land acquisition process. So we don't need to see receipts immediately in order to get like payments 1 and 2 or earlier in the process. But we do need to see receipts before the closing. So basically in interim payment 3, that provides the closing costs, and that's where we will sort of true up, the actual expenses at that point. Um, uh, so for what you need to put in your application, you're going to need estimates. And we're going to use those estimates to establish the value of the deliverables for each of the standard steps. And what you're going to use is the financial workbook, and this is a download in SFS. It's an Excel format, so you'll need to go into SFS when you create a bid. Go to the events, attachments, and comments section within your bid, and Brad will show how to access that when he presents on the screen the SFS, what it actually will look like. You'll download and save that Excel sheet and fill it out outside the system. And here's where I'll just kind of share that sheet so you can see what we're talking about. Okay, so hopefully everyone is seeing the Excel workbook or work right now. So the first section of the workbook is our financial worksheet. This is if you look at the tabs on the bottom of your screen, it's the first tab. And this is our financial worksheet for the Open Space Conservation Grant Program project. You're going to fill in the name of the bidder, the landowner name, the acres to be acquired. Again, that could be a subdivision, whatever we need. We want to know the actual acres being acquired, not necessarily the current ownership. The estimated purchase price for the land, and then those amounts are going to fill down into our budget table here. So in the budget table, we have columns for costs. You're going to fill in your estimated amounts in this column, estimated acquisition costs. And then the funding sources for this one is fairly simple. It's either a state contribution or other in terms of cash. Or it can be an in-kind service, in which case we want to know about that so we understand how that's being covered, even though there's no cash involved. So for the cash columns, that's either the state contribution or other. And again, like there is no match requirement, but we do need to see that the actual costs are covered. So that's where this other column for cash comes in. When you enter the costs, it's going to automatically calculate a 10% non-land cost buffer, and that will add up to a sum that will be available in case of any cost overruns that kind of come along later in the process. You would kind of apply to use that later on in the process as you approach the closing. You also have a line here for site preparation and cleanup up to $100,000. So as you can see, these are the actual expenses for your title report, your survey, your appraisal, outside legal fees, environmental assessment, recording and closing fees, and a conservation defense insurance premium. There's places for other costs, just in case there's anything that wasn't included in these lines above. You can put in your own costs here. Um, and you may have grantee staff time working on this, but that's going to be in-kind contribution only. That's not an eligible cost under this round. And there's notes down below. So anywhere where you see a superscript number, like the title report and title insurance, and you see the 7 there, you're going to scroll down and you can look at that note. And this is where we've given, some helpful instructions. Like for example, over the title report, it should include all costs associated with the report and the policy, except any associated legal expenses. These deliverables may be distributed throughout the project, but the full amount will be paid in interim payment 1. So this just gives you some information and guidance as you fill this out. Any questions that you have after reading all this guidance, come to us. So the nice thing about this is think of this as your working document. You'll later, as if you're awarded the grant, you're going to update this for us in the middle of the project, and we'll continue to use this to track your project. But the payments themselves are going to be based on the performance budget. And this workbook will automatically, on the second tab, which has instructions for the performance budget, this will automatically pull in the amounts that you entered on the financial worksheet on the first tab and give you the amounts that you need to actually enter into the budget in SFS. Up here at the top is the detailed instructions on where to click in SFS. Again, Brad will show that real soon in order to, for each of the budget categories, the grant funds amount and the other funds amount that you need to submit. So this is arranged in order of the deliverables. So your first deliverable is contract approval. Once you have contract approval, you're going to get interim payment 1. Interim payment 1 is going to pay for 50% of legal fees and the cost of the title report and title insurance. You're going to use that money to develop the preliminary review package. You would submit that preliminary review package, and when it's approved, you'll get interim payment number 2. Interim payment number 2 is going to pay for survey appraisal, the rest of the legal fees, the environmental assessment. Now that you have that money, you can work on all of the pre-closing requirements. You'll submit those pre-closing requirements, and when they're approved, you'll get interim payment 3, which will cover the purchase price. There will be a 10% retainage, up to 10,000, no more than 10,000, that we will hold until the closing is completed. Any other transaction costs that you entered would be paid at this point here. Okay, so you have closing. Now you're ready. You're ready to look at like the site preparation and cleanup. So whatever costs you enter for that will be paid at this point, right in interim payment 4 after the closing. And there would be a withholding from that, so that we're kind of making sure that all of that site preparation and cleanup is completed before you get a final payment. And probably right around the same time as site preparation and cleanup payment, you'll also get your final payment for the acquisition, because you'll send us your post-closing requirements showing the recording and closing fees, the fee acquisition. We will release the retainage at that point, and you'll get that back. That's up to 10,000. We'll pay that insurance premium. And if there are costs, like we said, we had that buffer that automatically calculates for every single applicant. That amount is here available in case there are reimbursable costs at that point that were not covered under the performance-based schedule overall. So I will stop sharing and hopefully we'll jump back into the next slide. And this just kind of summarizes again, the first part is the worksheet, second part gives you your instructions. And then the next slide should wrap up. There are going to be SFS entries related to this for the cost and the budget. So from part 2 of your workbook, you'll enter that into the budget properties section of your bid in SFS. We also want you to upload the workbook. So once it's all filled out and saved, you're going to upload that to eligibility question number 8, and it's going to prompt you to do that. You may have written, or you should have written estimates and quotes related to the costs that you've put on the worksheet. We want you to upload those as well under the scoring questions, number 26 and 27 for reasonableness of costs. And that's where we can see them. There is a field for budget narrative when you're filling in your budget. It's better if you put that under the cost effectiveness questions 26 and 27 because just to have that all in one place. But if you do, there is an area of the RFA that says to fill in this budget narrative. If you put it there, that's fine. If you put it under the other questions, that's fine. Either way, we're not going to hold it against any of the applicants. So I think I kind of pretty much covered pretty clearly what the interim payments and what they cover. You know, and so I won't go through this list again. And I'll just go to the next slide. For those visual folks, hopefully this kind of wraps it up nicely. You have your estimates, quotes, recent comparables, and if you do have an appraisal, use those to fill in the workbook and to upload those to SFS. And then with your workbook, that's going to auto calculate your budget entries to put into SFS. So you'll enter those yourself into the performance-based budget. That will create the payment schedule if awarded. And the workbook, we will look at that as part of our application review for the eligibility and reasonableness of costs along with your uploads. That should complete this section of the presentation.
Thank you, Dylan. That was fantastic. We're going to move quickly now over to Brad McMillan, who will go over some of our SFS state financial system slides for everybody. All right, here you go, Brad.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian. Hello, everyone. As previously mentioned, my name is Brad McMillan. I work here with I'm just trying to share my screen. The grants management team here with ITS. We provide technical support and training for the grants management functionality within SFS. So if you need any help, feel free to reach out to us. It's been covered. We'll show that again. How to reach out to us. But we're going to start with a few things, and I'm going to reiterate some things that David's previously mentioned. For one, they're important. Two, you need to know where to find this stuff. And this is going to go pretty quick here because we're talking about two categories of people here. If your organization is not registered in SFS, or you're a not-for-profit that needs to get pre-qualified or maintain your pre-qualification, this is a good place to start here. And it seems odd that it's not in SFS, but it's grantsmanagement.ny.gov. This is our informational website that will help you get started if you're one of those organizations that have no access to sorry, that was our previous system, SFS. But right here, it's quite easy to navigate. If you hover over this Get Started link here, you'll see the register your organization information. And you have the train stops here along the left-hand side if you need to navigate through them, how to register, the instructions, registration and help, how to get a hold of us, and then the forms to download. A couple documents that you can fill out, send to us, and we'll get your account set up in SFS. One thing I do want to mention, because this does happen occasionally with organizations with grants management functionality being new to SFS, even though you may have already been assigned a SFS vendor ID number, if your organization is not registered for the grants management functionality, you may still need to send us this information. So with that being said, and if you've heard me, I know some of the DEC folks have heard me do lots of these. One thing I always mention, and I think David mentioned this several times, start early. It is the number one thing that I can tell you throughout this whole presentation is start early. It is the number one failure of people not meeting the deadline and not being successful with their grant application. If you need to get registered, I recommend starting today. That process can take 5 to 10 days alone. Then if you need to get pre-qualified, again, here with the Get Started, and this is just for not-for-profits. This does not apply to governmental entities or tribal organizations. If you click to get pre-qualified, same thing here, lots of information to get you started. The requirements, required questions, this will help you get started. Even if you're not registered, you can take a look at this and kind of start preparing. So again, start early, get registered, get in the system, check your pre-qualification, make sure you're all set there. With that, let's look at our SFS homepage here. And I'm going to steal some terminology from David, which is great. It's that RFA document is your encyclopedia. It's so important to getting through this whole process successfully. And as David mentioned, it's going to answer a lot of your questions right there in the document. So how do we find that? Good news is you don't even need a username or password. You don't need to be registered. You do not need to be pre-qualified. As soon as this webinar is over, you can go to the SFS homepage here and locate this RFA document. If you haven't, highly recommend doing that today. If we go down here to our tiles, we have the vendor portal login. I'm logged in 2 places here. Bear with me. I was trying to get started early and get this out of the way. That's not going to let me. So let's go back here. This one. So here on the SFS homepage, again, we're just going to locate the RFA, and it is the only place you can locate it. Once you get logged in, you're not going to find it. So before you log in, go to the sfs.ny.gov vendor portal login. And then we have the search for grant opportunities tile over here. You can click on that. And then we see a lot of available grant opportunities. I encourage you to go through the list. Maybe you find something that you didn't know was available. And you can also filter these columns by clicking the top. So if I click funding agency, it's going to order those in alphabetical order for me. I can scroll down. Here's my DEC grants, and here's my Open Space Conservation 2025 Round 1 grant. So now all we got to do from here to get that RFA document is click the link. This is another place while we're here. I'm going to show you 2 places to locate this. It was mentioned previously, the questions and answers. This is where they're going to be posted. There's nothing here yet, but when you get some free time, you're getting ready to log in to look at your grant application, check out this link, check out those Q&A. It oftentimes will also answer questions that you have, because oftentimes the question that you have is a question someone else has. So again, a useful document. The other useful document, and this is the reason we went here, right, is this view grant opportunity link. If we click this link, it will open up the RFA document for us. And again, it is your encyclopedia. I hope David didn't copyright that, because I'm going to use it probably for all future presentations. It is important. It's your due dates. It's your instructions, your eligible cost, everything is here. And one of the most common, not most common, a common question we get at the help desk a lot is, I want to log in, I want to get my application started so I can print out all the questions. That's great, you can do that, and I'll show you how to do that, but you don't need to. They're all right here in the RFA document. Once you get this, you've got 90% of the information that you need to complete this. So again, if you haven't read this already, I encourage you to go to the website today, get it, keep it close. You're going to need it. It's going to help you throughout the process of getting this application submitted successfully. So I covered a few housekeeping things there. I'm going to stop sharing real quick just so I can get logged in, which was another reason I tried to do this early so I wouldn't have to stop sharing. So bear with me 1 second. Sorry about that. But here we are logged into the SFS, and this is the testing environment. So, and it's an exact duplicate of what you're going to see in the production. So it is no different. So one key tile here I want to draw your attention to, and it's very useful for numerous reasons, is this SFS coach tile. It's been mentioned numerous times throughout this webinar that this will be posted. You'll have access to the recording, but maybe you're logged into SFS. You just need a quick tip, maybe something to get you over one little speed bump that you've encountered. In this SFS coach, there is this Managing New York State Grants Quick Start Center over here. One of the biggest complaints we get about SFS coach is there's so much material here, it's hard to find what you're looking for. There's tons of great information here, but this will narrow your search results down. So if I just click this link here, you see pre-qualification. If you're a not-for-profit, you need help, go there. But we're looking for responding to grant opportunities today. I want to show you a couple things here. We'll click the link, everything we need here. We don't have to use the training types and keywords and all those things. It's right here for us. One thing I like to refer to often, I like the videos. Some people like to read. We have different formats here. If you would like to watch another video, maybe you're logged in, you just need something quick, fast forward to the section you need. There you go. We also have this grantee processing and SFS handbook. And I just want to show you something in that really quick, because we do use this a lot. We refer to people a lot. And the biggest complaint we get is, I'm not going to read 216 pages. That's ridiculous. I agree. It is ridiculous. We wouldn't expect you to do that. But what you can do is once you get this document open, here in our table of contents, you can narrow it down just like we did in the SFS coach there. We can narrow our search results down because we can go down to this section responding to bid events, grant opportunities. Click it, takes you right to the section you need. Again, you don't need to read the whole thing. But one thing I wanted to point out here, because this is a role-based system, much like the Grants Gateway, which was the previous system that people use to submit their grant applications, there are a couple roles that you will need. So if you're a new user, you've reached out to maybe your primary contact within your organization, and you're requesting roles, these are the roles that you need to submit this application. There's two, actually. The initiator role. So for some reason, maybe you're a grant writer for an organization and they want you to go in and initiate the application and complete it. But then maybe they want someone else within the organization to review the material and submit it. You would need the event submit role, this bid response submitter. Perfectly fine to have both. If you're the person in your organization that's going to initiate, complete, and submit this application, you will need both. I want to stress that. To submit, you do need both of these. We see it often. You get down to the deadline, someone's in a panic. They get ready to submit, the button's grayed out, they only have one role. So again, I just wanted to stress, bid of response initiator allows you to do that, initiate the grant, and then the submitter does that, allows you to submit. Perfectly fine to have both. If you would like to separate those duties within your organization, you can also do that. So that was a lot of information, a lot of tips, where to find some information within the system, where to find the RFA. Now let's apply for a grant within the system here. To get started, here on our homepage, much like the SFS coach tile, you're going to look for this grants management stay towel. And this, if you get to this point and you do not see this, that's your first indication that either your organization isn't registered with the grants management functionality, you don't have an org type, or you do not have the roles needed. So that would be your first tip here. I don't have the grants management stay towel. You got a little work to do. Once we click this tile, you're going to see a lot of options here. Pre-qualification, again, for not-for-profits. This is where you're going to start that process. But to bid on a response or submit your grant application, you're going to use this bid event search up here in the left-hand corner. It could be in a different spot. You can actually customize this however you like it. On my screen, it is the upper left-hand corner, bid event search. Okay, now this is another spot, you know, you're looking for your DEC grant, obviously, but not a bad idea to scroll through and see what else is here. So my recommendation on this page would be search by the status available to start with. It's going to show you everything that's currently in the system that's available for your entity type. Again, you may scroll through and find something else you're interested in. But for us, we are looking for this Open Spaces Conservation 2025 Round 1 grant. You notice this is not DEC because I had to build it under the ITS domain. That is something I should mention here. This is a demonstration. It is not an exact replica. So if you see some bit of NID, some questions, maybe some dates and times, don't think that's accurate. Refer to that if your encyclopedia, your RFA document for those exact dates, times, questions, things like that. This is just for the demonstration purpose. Now, one mistake we see, it's not a mistake, it's kind of just heading down the wrong road. We see oftentimes here at the help desk, as people get to this page, oh, here's the name of the grant I want to apply to. So I'm going to click that link. And then you probably notice pretty quickly here, where's the apply button? I don't see anything except for return to search. I do have this handy contact email if I have a question for DEC about the program. This is the second spot, we mentioned this earlier, where you can also check your questions and answers. I would highly encourage you, if you're logging in to work on your application, just as you're passing through, click here, see what's there. Currently nothing, but there may be some questions and answers posted. Check that out prior to even getting into the application. But clicking the name of the grant will not get you to the place you need to initiate your grant. What you're going to do is click this one to the left, the bit of NID, we call this one. All the way to the left, we click that link. Right away, you see some different options here. Now, on this first page, there's really not much for you to gather in. We still have this DC grant here, or the email address, very handy. Date and times, again, these may not be accurate, so don't lock these into your brain, but it's going to give you your event end date. Very important. Start early, submit early, so you don't have to worry about this date. But to get started here, we're going to bid on the event, which is maybe some new terminology. I know David made the comparisons earlier, which were spot on. Bid on the event. You're going to submit your grant application, however you prefer to refer to it. But that's our first step, bid on event. Now, we've talked about a couple of things that are kind of pitfalls that slow people down here. The number one problem we see here is people will come to their grant application. They'll immediately maybe go down to these general questions or your technical questions and fill them out, save them, come back, and then all the information is gone. You can't save this and come back later until you've completed the project site address and the bidder contact information. I slowed down there because it's very important. And again, it is the number one mistake. We answer this question probably every day that we come into work. I was working on my grant application yesterday. I put in all my narrative responses. I saved it. I'm in today and I got nothing. There's nothing there. That is because the site project address and the bidder contact information was not completed. Again, I can't stress that enough. This should be your first step. You click bid on event, you should go right here. Enter your site project address, bidder contact information. Without that, there's no sense in even going further because nothing's going to save. So our first step, let's do that. I'll just put make this quick so you don't have to watch me type. And then our name, and we see these oftentimes where people may put in a fake name or bogus name, maybe a silly email address that's not really an email address. Do yourself a favor and put in a real contact here, because this may be what is used to contact your organization if there's a problem, if there's an update. You need to enter in this information, and DC can use this. There's a report they can run. So we're not going to send it. You're not going to get anything else related to anything other than this grant. So do yourself a favor, put in the real name. If you don't want a telephone number, make one up. That's fine, because DC is probably not going to call you anyway. But please put in a real name and a real email address. So we've entered in our site project address. We've entered our bidder contact information. So what I would recommend doing next is saving this. Because now that I have those two things entered and I save this is going to tell me it's not complete, which obviously we know that. Now I can log out and come back to this later. So let's do that. Let's say we saved it. We got our Q&A. We got our RFA document. Let's do one more thing before we do that. I apologize. Second step, events, comments, and attachments, because this is very important and Dylan spent a lot of time on it. This is blank. This is where you're going to go to get that financial worksheet that Dylan was just demonstrating. Any key documents that DEC has made available, they are going to be here for you. It's very simple. You'll have the view button. This would not be grayed out for you because there would be an actual document there. You can download it to your computer, save it however you prefer to keep it on hand. But you've done two things here. You've saved your application for later. You've gone into the system and you've gathered all the key documents that DEC has provided for you that you'll need. Some of them are required to be uploaded to bid factors or questions in the SFS system. So, two things, just to go over those real quickly again. Log in, save your site project address, bidder contact information, gather your financial worksheet and the other key documents. Now we've saved it. We can leave and come back. Save it for later just to make sure. Okay, so now we can go have lunch, go look at those documents offline, whatever we need to do. Let's go back home. We're going to go right through those steps again to navigate now to our saved in process application. So repeat, grants management state. There's nothing different about finding an in-process application to when you first initiated it. We're going to go to our bid event search. We're going to search by status available again, just to narrow our search field down. We don't want to see things that aren't available. Scroll down to our bid event. And we're going to click the bid event ID to the left to initiate, not initiate, to locate our application. And now here's one place you could get a little sideways too. You're looking at this screen, you're like, well, I don't see anything. Let me click bid on event again. You don't need to unless you're submitting two applications. Please don't, actually, if you're not submitting additional applications, because you can scroll down here to this section here. You may have noticed this earlier. I was trying to ignore it to build up to this, but we have my bids. You would see one in process and submitted. I have three. I did a little test yesterday to make sure everything was working here. And then we have our bid event IDs, but if you only have the one, you only have the one row, you won't have to worry about it. But I can go right over here to the view edit, click that link. Here's the application I started earlier. And this is a common question we get. How do we get back to the saved application? But again, if you did not enter in your site project address and bidder contact information, it doesn't matter if you completed everything else, nothing will be here. If you enter in those two things, it will be here.
Brad, do they hit view or edit when they're going back in?
View.
View. Okay, thanks.
So let's look at our next steps here. Let's look at our narrative responses here. I only built 4 examples here. So my idea here was I was going to build, I think I have 2 text, but I wanted to give you an example of each type of question that you're going to encounter in the system. Some of them are quite easy. The project overview, it's a text response. Do be aware with these response boxes, this is limited to 2,000 characters. So if you like to get the application started offline, maybe working on a Word document, you want to limit it to 2,000 characters here. We have there's a yes, no, at least one here. Very easy. A map. Did you upload a map in question 22? Yes or no? If you enter no, you should go look at question 22. We're going to go yes. And then I wanted to look at a attachment question, which is here a deed copy, provide a copy of the deeds. This would also be available, just to mention, I think there is a few questions that are text type that do allow attachments and comments. If you have that available in the question, they're not available for all questions, you'll have another 2,000 character box here. So let's see what that looks like. This is a question that requires an attachment. That's why you do not see the response box here, but we can enter our file attachment on the second screen. You've seen this. It's similar to most websites that you're going to upload documents. We'll click the upload button here. I'm going to choose a file. And I got one here on the desktop. And this is where we'll mention, click my upload button here. Upload should be PDF format unless instructed otherwise in the RFA document. SFS system prefers PDFs. Those PDFs should be limited to 20 megabytes, which is quite large. They should be non-fillable and not password protected. So keep that in mind as you're uploading this. Some of those things will give you an error message. When you try to upload it, it'll tell you that password protected. It won't tell you that. It will tell you the document is not acceptable, and reach out to the help desk, which is fine. If you run into that problem, reach out to us at the help desk. We'll help you. But again, PDFs less than 20 megabytes, non-fillable, non-secured, no password protection. That would be great. But here's our upload.
Hey,
Yes.
Brad, they're going to be able to upload the financial worksheet as an Excel though, right?
Right. Yep. That's what I mentioned, unless instructed otherwise in the RFA. So if the RFA says upload your Excel financial worksheet, then you should absolutely do that.
And that's
Otherwise, it
question
should
10,
be-
I think, the estimates.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I think it's question 10, the project estimate.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh no, the financial worksheet question 8, I beg your pardon. Yeah, that'll be okay to upload your Excel. We don't want to see the financial worksheet in a PDF.
Got it. And then, as we mentioned earlier, the additional comments box, if you do have this page available, and again, that's up to DC. Some questions they made available, some they didn't. You may see another text response box here that would allow for additional 2,000 characters. So just something to be aware of. Upload your document. You can enter in comments on this page if needed. So that's the upload process. We have a text, we have a yes, no. I'm going to intentionally leave this one blank. We'll pretend we answered that one. But let's get into our work plan and budget. How do we access that? It's a little goofy. We see in our events, comments, and attachments section here, nothing really jumps out at you on the page that says, here's the budget, here's the work plan. But it is at the bottom of the page here, and it is this link that says period details 1. Click that link. Now it makes a little more sense from this screen. We have our budget properties, we have our work plan properties. So let's jump into the budget so you can get a good view of what that's going to look like when you get in the system. Dylan did a great job with the financial worksheet, and that's going to help you tremendously with filling out this performance-based budget. So there's 2 grids here on this screen. The first one, budget categories, is only showing you what categories are available. We have our interim payment 1 through 5, which Dylan demonstrated. We can use other, so we can enter in our other funds. Overage on claims, no match. Don't have to worry about that. There is no place here to enter in your financial numbers. That is in the second grid down at the bottom. But one thing I want to mention here on this top grid, you may notice these plus and minus buttons, and you can go in and edit these fields. Please don't. DEC has these set exactly the way they want them, and if you change them, they're going to have to change them back. So leave these budget categories just as they're listed here: interim payment 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I think that financial document will set you right up to enter all this information right into the system in the second grid. So let's just look at the first one here, interim payment 1. We have all our categories here. Again, we can't edit anything here. To enter in any information, we're going to click this link all the way to the right, our category details. Now, one thing I want to mention here with this performance-based budget, as you scroll across, and that's something to be aware of in SFS, these left and right scroll bars, you're going to see a lot of things here. Percent funded, number of months, item SKU, quantity, unit price. Anything that does not apply to you, you can leave it blank. For instance, position title, salary, standard work weeks. You can leave that blank. It's not required. You only need to fill in the categories or the sections here that are required to demonstrate the funding that you're requesting. So pretty simple here. If you've done other grant applications in SFS, we're going to enter in a type and description. We'll enter in our grant funds, our other funds, and no match is required. So, that may be all you need to enter. As we scroll across, none of these apply to the funding that we're looking for. We can leave those all blank. And you see, as you enter in the information, it is added up down here for you. And if we close this, scroll down, it will also be listed here on this page. So one thing to remember, because you're going to need this number, and you got your financial worksheet, you got it here in the budget, so it's going to be very easy to access. But this grant funds, you need to remember that total number, write it down. I'm going to show you where you're going to have to enter in that in a little bit, but you're going to need that. We could go through more categories here, but if you look interim payment 2, same thing. Just like interim payment 1, we have all these categories. Enter only the ones that apply to you. So we're going to save this. And let's go back. And we'll look at our work plan. You're going to like this because DC did a lot of the work up front for you. Let's take a look. So we have our project summary here at the top, but if you scroll down, and this is a short example, I didn't do the whole work plan. I only did the first objective. DEC has entered all this information for you. So there's really nothing here in the lower section of the work plan page that you need to complete. It's all set up for you. You can see there. I think I did copy this right from the real one. This is your first objective, land acquisition, which relates to your first interim payment. So it's all connected. All the work plan properties, the objectives, task, and performance measures are related to those payments that Dylan explained in that financial worksheet. But you will need to complete your project summary here, this top piece. It holds a lot of characters. I don't think we've had anyone hit the limit yet.
How many characters is this? I have questions about this all the time.
Unlimited. No one's ever hit the limit. So whatever it is, we don't know.
So there's nothing to click for an extra 2,000 characters.
Nope, this is a big
Okay.
one. This is the one that makes people happy because you don't have to run up against that 2,000 character limit. I read one the other day that I didn't read all 35. I did a quick count. I think it was like 35,000 or something. So yeah, feel free to type away.
Yeah, or you can copy and paste answers to the questions in here. This project summary will be part of the contract eventually. And you can also explain your costs if you want to do it in narrative form as well. That's all very helpful. But this project summary is terrific.
Yeah, that's a big one. So I don't, like I said, no one's hit the limit yet. We don't even know what it is. It goes a long way. But again, enter in your project summary, your objective, task, and performance measures. These have been entered by DC, so you're good there. And again, I'm going to save the page. Go back. And I'm going to create a couple errors here. So we've really completed our budget. We've completed our work plan. Let's return to our bid response. And let's scroll through Oh, one thing I wanted to mention before I try to submit this, this is another question we get a lot, and I kind of explained it in the beginning. I want to get all the questions out of the system and then enter them in a Word document. How do I get them in the system? Well, the quickest way is read the RFA document because they're all there. You don't need to go anywhere else. But if you're logged in and you want to see it, click this bid response PDF, which I probably should have showed at the beginning, but here we are. And if we scroll down, you can do this at the end too. That we also get the same question at the end. Where's the questions? Here's my budget. I can go through and enter in all that information. Get the questions if you want. But again, you can also do that in the RFA document, and that is here in the bid response PDF. So we've got this saved. Let's make sure, let's double save it. We think we have everything done. I'm going to try to submit. We should get a couple errors here. And actually, they're already there. One is response required. You must enter response for general question 4. That's the one we intentionally left blank, right? We scroll down to question number 4. There we go. We didn't enter in anything. So let's enter in a text response here. Let's go back up and save our application. And this was kind of a weird one here. And we see this one a lot. It says message not found. And that's why I wanted to demonstrate this one. It's not always this problem, but oftentimes it is. It's this little box here at the bottom, your unit bid price. And this is where I was talking about. You need to remember, write down, you have it in your budget. It's not like you have to memorize it, but you're going to need that amount right here. $1,000 is what we put. Pretty small grant, but you'll need to enter in, and this is just your grant funds. If you remember, we looked at those columns. It was grant funds. That's what you're going to enter in here. So let's say for later, we scroll up. All our error messages are gone. We can go through and review all our information again. I'm one of those. I like to review it 4 times before I submit it. But once you're ready to submit it, here's our button. Again, if this is grayed out, 2 things. Either you're past this deadline or you don't have the right role. And that was where you would need that bid response submitter role that we talked about in the beginning. But let's go ahead and submit our bid. There we go. Are you done making changes? So that's one thing important, and that's why I mentioned reviewing these. Once you submit this, we can't give it back to you. If you remember in the previous system, maybe if you've applied in that one, it's been 2 years now that we've been out of that one, but we could open them back up prior to the deadline. So you got 2 more days here. You can keep working on it. Once you submit this, we can't open it back up. So review all your material, make sure you're ready to go. We are ready, so we're going to hit the yes button. And there we go. Your bid has been successfully submitted. You may want to take a screenshot of this. We get this question all the time at the help desk too. I submitted my bid. I did not get an email confirming that I submitted it. Can you tell me if my bid was submitted? So this tells me I have successfully submitted bid 3. Let me show you another way to find it though, because we're going to repeat one more time here. And did I say start early? I want to make sure I said start early. If we go back home, we've already submitted our application. Again, grants management state, bid event search. We're going to narrow our search down to available. You see, we do this every time we want to go look at our in-process application, or maybe we're looking for one that we've already submitted. We'll go down to our open space conservation grant. Put the bid event ID to the left. We're going to scroll down again because we've already bid on it. We've already submitted. We don't need that button up there. But if we go to this in process and submitted bids, again, we look at our grid here and we can see this event status is always going to say posted. That is the bid event, the grant opportunity. That's going to say posted. But our bid status, and this is the one we just worked on, says posted. That means we submitted it. As you see here in our other example, this is my bid status is saved. That means I worked on it. I did enter in my project site address and my contact information, and I saved it, but I have not submitted the application. So there's two ways. You have the confirmation as soon as you submit. You can also come back, look at your little grid here. Is this posted? Then I'm good. I've submitted my grant application to DC, and I'm free to move about the cabin. That is the end of the demonstration in SFS, though. I hope it was helpful. If there are any questions related to SFS, I'll stay on absolutely to answer those. I got a feeling from the first hour, though, there may be a ton of technical questions. So I'll end my presentation here with one thing: start early, and contact us early. We also see that problem where people, maybe they did start early, but they don't reach out to us for help until the last day, last couple hours. It's hard for us to help close to the deadline. We'll do our best, but the sooner you contact us with your issue, the more successful we will be in helping you. We're 100% accurate in helping people prior to the deadline. The closer you get, our success rate goes down. So let us be successful in helping you. If you have any technical issues with the system, get started early, contact us early, and we'll get you through it. So thank you. Good luck to everyone. I hope it's a smooth sail. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer those.
Thanks so much, Brad. Appreciate it. I'm gonna work through some more questions that we had here till we get to about 3 o'clock before we end this, but we got another maybe 15 minutes to work through some of these questions. So I'll try to get through what we can. And if we don't get to your question, please send us an email to our email box. All right, so I think I'm gonna see. I'm gonna try to jump back to where I was. Okay. Is trail building on acquired land an allowable expense? I think that's the one before when I stopped. Does one of our panelists want to jump in on that?
I'm pretty sure the RFA said no.
I believe that's correct. Thanks,
Parking
Rob.
is a yes, but trails are a no.
Okay. Fantastic. I see the filling of old dug water wells is an eligible cost. Is the plugging of a modern non-hand dug water well an eligible cost? Do you have
My
any?
opinion, we didn't address that specific fact, but I think the answer would be yes.
Okay.
'Cause we've done it on DEC's does that too.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rob. Okay. The question is there a priority given to applications that come in early? Will you be reviewing applications as they come in, or will you begin reviewing after the deadline? This is a competitive grant. We will be reviewing after the deadline, and no priority will be given to the order which the grants come in. Are consultation fees for design and construction, depending on the improvement, an allowable expense? David or Rob, do you want to jump in on that one?
Could you repeat it? I'm trying
Yeah.
to find where you are in the questions and I'm kind of a little lost.
I'm at the time is 1:29, but the question is when the question came in, and the question is, are consultant fees for design and construction, depending on the improvement, an allowable expense?
Most likely, yes, but I think that we would want to reserve this for perhaps an email, if you could send an email on that.
I agree with that, David. I think we have to discuss that.
Okay, thank you both.
Brian, can I just ask you to back up? A question, I saw another question that kind of addresses something you just said about I think, am I saying it right for everyone that if you get the application first or last, we aren't going to start reviewing them and then give approvals or select winners sooner than later, right? They're all going to kind of come out simultaneously.
Correct.
Right? Okay.
Yeah,
So
it's not a rolling application period where we're approving them as they come in. We will be reviewing and rating them compared to all the others after the application deadline.
Thanks. Thank you.
Is that clear?
It
Rob?
does. Right. Right. So, right. So if we, right, exactly. That's the answer. Perfect.
Perfect. All right. Let's see. So the county is purchasing a 200-acre camp from Cornell Cooperative Extension. Would this be eligible? I think the answer to that would be it depends if the property is already protected or not. I don't know if Rob, you wanted to add any clarification to that.
No, I agree with you. The county is
And
they could be an applicant, of course, but it all depends on the status of the parcel.
excellent. Let's see. There's a question here on acquisition appraisals. I see that acquisitions require 2 appraisals when the value exceeds 500,000. If an application is submitted on a project to cover non-capital costs, i.e. a grant application for less than 100,000 for cleanup and site prep costs only, not land acquisition costs, but the land value exceeds 500,000, are 2 appraisals still required?
You know, I think I want to talk to the rest of the group, but I don't think that's a valid application project.
Okay.
This is about land acquisition, right? And this it looks like this scenario is applying for cleanup costs.
That's right. Yeah,
Yep.
that wouldn't be eligible.
That wouldn't be eligible. Yeah. Thanks,
Okay.
Michelle.
Okay. Jim Bonesteel asked, when will awards be announced? As we had just kind of gone over, we're going to receive all of our applications in February 18th after closing. We will then have to review them. So it would be hard for us at this point to estimate a timeline for when we will be awarding these grants. So I would say stay tuned.
We're shooting
For
for
the
May.
application for, yeah, sometime this spring, but we're not positive when that would happen. Okay. Laura asked, what happens if your appraised value ends up being higher than the original estimate from the real estate person, and the grant award isn't enough to cover it? Can it be amended with good cause? And I would say yes. We understand that that is a possibility, given the estimate of value that we were requiring for the application, and that this may be adjusted at the time of purchase. And
It would have to be via a formal contract amendment.
correct. Thank you, Dylan.
Yep.
I was about to ask for exactly how that was going to happen, but I do know we have a method to deal with that. Michael asked, could a not-for-profit apply to acquire land from a municipality?
I think if the land is not under park alienation, if the municipality owned a piece of land that wasn't subject to park alienation, is that, or please correct me if I'm wrong.
That was my first thought on that as well, Rob. And similarly, the next question is, can a not-for-profit acquire land from a school district? I guess it also really depends on the parcel and if that parcel is protected currently or not. The next question, we're a land trust. How do we show that a subject park property will have public access? Is there a period granted to get the property ready for the public access and raise money for costs associated with that, parking, signage, etc.? this would be described in the grant and the narrative involved in it as well. So there's some discussion in our grant scoring section, starting on page 21, section 7 of the RFA. And there, just for reference on this comment, we do have some money allocated in this for projects to provide funding for public access on properties. I don't know if anyone else wants to jump in and add anything to that response.
I would just say that whatever access they are going to provide within the grant funding needs to be able to be completed within the contract term.
Okay, fantastic.
We
Okay.
do want folks to talk about the public access potential and plans, even if those are looking beyond the grant period, but then be very clear about what you're actually committing to within the grant period.
Thank you, Dylan. The next question is the appraisal done pre or post award? We have a estimate of value that is done pre-award with a full appraisal post award.
I think you missed a question right above that from Jim Bonesteel.
I had seen that, yeah, Rob. Jim asked how quickly might we be able to close on a project? We have one possible projected project lined up, but we may need to move quickly. Jim has also followed up with an email to us, and I believe we're gonna respond to him that way. Unless you want to jump in, Rob.
I think the email is best. I agree.
Okay.
Brian, just a quick reminder to everyone, it'll appear in the questions and answers.
That is a great clarification, David. Thank you. So we also have a question and answers document that we will be updating regularly as questions come in for this grant. So also keep an eye out for those if you have specific questions that might be answered in there. Laura asked, are there plans for an easement round or only fee? This first round is only for fee acquisition, and we have not designed future rounds yet. But we do know that that is a need within the land conservation community. What preference is there for lands in environmental justice communities? Within the scoring section of our RFA, again, starts on page 21, section 7. There is scoring rating for both community benefits and for disadvantaged communities. So see those sections for the points that are awarded for those.
Brian, we're nearly out of time. You want to just do
Okay.
a couple more questions? Anybody who hasn't had that question answered will definitely put the answers on the Q&A and where possible, reach out to you by email.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Yeah, I'll try to get through a couple more of these before we run out of time today. And I thank you all for your questions, and hopefully we did our best to answer them today. Are capital expenditures for equipment and facilities covered by this grant if it is involved the tending of the land? I believe that is a no. Though, Michelle, do you want to correct me if I'm wrong on that?
We have the funds for site cleanup, which you can look at in the RFA, but no, there's no like to build a
building
park
or
or build a
purchase a tractor.
no.
Yeah, we do not have funding for that.
We do allow for equipment rental for to
Yes.
contribute to the site preparation and cleanup work.
Yeah. Like
And
if you've got to
supplies and
move a lot of
materials.
garbage or anything like that, you could hire a front end loader. But you're not going to be ineligible if you put something wrong in that's not eligible and you put it in your bid. we'll go through that with you if you're awarded and let you know, or we'll let you know before you're awarded. If there's, you know, if we can't give you the funding for it, we would tell you that before the award. But you're not going to lose a lot of points for putting in something wrong like that.
Fantastic. Let's see.
Last question.
What if we already have a contract of sale? Are we eligible for this grant? I don't know, Rob or someone, I'm not sure actually.
I don't think so, because the appraisal wouldn't have been done to our standards. You still have to procure the survey.
That would be a challenge for sure.
Yeah, a lot of backtracking.
All right, well, I'm sorry we didn't get to all the questions today. I appreciate everyone's engagement in it. I'm just going to pass it off to David for closing remarks.
I would just say for that contract of sale, please send us an email about that and provide additional details. Just as a real quick recap, these are the dates that are important. The question period is done the 16th of February. The deadline for the application is February 18th, both at 3 p.m. Please do not wait until the last minute. That will cause a lot of heartache for you, I think. We anticipate awards to be announced in the spring and contract dates to start in the summer. You can go to the next slide. And here's the information again that's important: the DLF grants email, and then the SF grants management email and phone numbers. And thanks so much for attending. This is a really big opportunity, and we hope that you'll all take advantage of it. Please send us questions to the email. No question is too complicated. We like complicated questions. No question is too simple. We like simple questions too. And again, thanks again for coming. And the webinar will be posted to the website here probably within a week. And the question and answers will be posted and updated to the SFS site probably within the next week as well. Have a good evening.
Thanks, everyone.